Welcome back to A Plus Parents, everyone. And with me today, a special guest, because special to me, because this guest met me when I first started, when this all began way back when. So, our first year of homeschool classes that we ever did classes, we had a pre algebra and an algebra one class. And our guest today, her name is Lorraine Smith. Her daughter, Miss Sarah Smith, was in that first group of students. I think there was about 10 of them when we got this thing going way back when, almost 15 years ago. And Lorraine was just telling me now she's all grown up. She's 28, and it's just kind of crazy. It was a super successful career, and so it's amazing. But Lorraine and I have stayed in touch all these years, as well as her daughter and I too. But Lorraine actually does work and has worked with my kids as well. So Lorraine does work as a counselor. So she is an educational consultant. And what does that mean? So that means that she works primarily with homeschool students in helping them with counseling services when we look in the world like guidance counseling and getting transcripts together, helping students if they're looking for particular applications to college, if they're looking for different ways that they can get, if they can get any kind of scholarship money, if they want to be dual enrolled while they're still in high school and they want to attend college. She's in Florida, so her main expertise is in Florida, but her skills apply worldwide. Really, this is probably the best way to say it. Lorraine has also been a teacher. So as a teacher, she's taught honors marine biology. She's taught biology. She's taught science. She's taught personal finance, American humanities, and even a health course through a really amazing co-op in Sarasota, Florida called Learning and Family. So it's been really, really awesome to know her over the years. She has a BA from the University of Florida. So let's go Gators. And her husband, Kevin, is an attorney. And she and Kevin have really been in the homeschool market, in the homeschool world. I don't want to say this to market, but the world really since 1991. And even if you're familiar with the FPEA, the Florida Parent Education Association, Kevin was former vice chairman of District 5 and the director of that for FPEA. So, when we look at how homeschooling has grown over the years, Lorraine and Kevin have been kind of in the middle of all that, watching things grow and watching things move as they have. So, first of all, Lorraine, it's so great to see you again. So, I'm so glad you're here. And thanks for making your day work to be here.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Dennis. It's really so fun as you were describing how we've known one another and the evolution of your business. And boy, when I found out that there was a guy like you teaching math, because that's not my subject, I was like, yes, was so excited. And my kids loved it. And as other students I have referred to you, I got to say for 95% of the kids, they love Mr. D Math. And it's
That's
helped
awesome.
them and it's made them successful as they progress through high school and then going on into college, SAT exams and so forth. So thank you.
You're so welcome. It's so funny. I remember sitting at your kitchen table with Sarah doing SAT prep. So,
Oh my, yes, by the skin of her teeth, she got
uh,
that test score.
yeah,
Yay. And then a full year, 4 years college scholarship. So
that's amazing.
that's a beautiful thing. Beautiful
That
thing.
really
Yeah.
is. That's
So
so great. We still have one of her testimonials that we use when we go to convention, and she kind of starts off. And she kind of says, and she goes, "Who knew this stuff actually could make sense?" Right? So,
yeah, that's true. Who knew? Especially when the problems had letters in them.
that's right. That's right. So, oh, that's
That was
funny.
the deal. Yeah,
Yeah.
we started homeschooling in 1991 when our oldest son was turning 5, and he was really a busy kid. And I thought, how is he going to sit in a classroom? And then all of a sudden, and he's real smart, he's very inquisitive, wanted to build, tactile. And so I had a friend at church who homeschooled their children. And I thought, homeschooling, that's kind of like weird people. They're reclusive and all that. So she invited me to a meeting. Well, I have to tell you, Dennis, it was the most normal, nice group of people. And that launched us into the homeschooling world. And at that time, homeschooling, this was 1991, it just became legal in Florida in 1985.
Wow.
And nationally, there was about 95,000 registered homeschool students then at that time. Today, well, I'd say into the 2022 school year, I just looked it up. There's about 160,000 homeschool students in Florida.
Wow,
So
that's
could you
amazing.
imagine the explosion of the homeschool market? And I know that that's not probably the current, because that's just with students registered with the school board. And of course, you
Right?
can be homeschooled and registered under a private umbrella school too. So it's really not the hard number.
That's amazing. Yeah, I looked it up one time, and I think it was, in the U.S. alone, there was over 3 million kids now
Oh,
that,
I'm not
you know,
surprised. Yeah.
yeah. So it's pretty amazing, and I'm sure that number is growing. And it's interesting because, like you said, it's like, they can be registered as a traditional homeschooler, but then they could also be doing something where they're working with that umbrella school, they're working with the private school, and there's a lot of something now that we're learning more about too, called micro schools, where these are small kind of schools that are similar to a co-op, but even smaller. And they're set up as a school. There's charter schools that work as
Yes.
independent learning, and just so many different things that are out there available for kids that are interested in the individualized being at home and really having a say in how their education is going to go. So it's been awesome. So,
Well, it's not the same as when we were in school, was it?
I was just gonna say, you think back, and you look 1991. It's funny because I'm like 1991. Wow, I started teaching in 1988 in the public school system. I mean, you've been in and around this for over 30 years.
Yeah.
And if you look at what you've seen over the last 30 years, what are some of the things that you've seen homeschooling? Because how it is today, it's really evolved into something today that is much more commonplace. And even like when we head to the conventions and things, and we're there and we're around other vendors, and you get to see the kinds of programs that we have out there. What we do today, and especially for us being online and all the different things we do. But in 1991, when you first got started, and to what you've seen the homeschooling movement as where it is today, what have you seen over the years?
Well, it was very small, very intimate. And all the moms were helping one another because this was all new. We had very limited amounts of curriculum to choose from. And primarily what I saw was homeschool families adopted probably what was offered in a Christian private school. And so they brought it home. Then all of a sudden, we started seeing more and more curriculums developed. So when my husband was the chairman of FPEA, our phone was ringing off the hook. And this was before email. Some of your
Right.
yeah, some of your listeners are like, what? I said,
Oh
so
my gosh, right.
I had a box, Dennis. It was loaded with catalogs, cassette tapes. People would come to the house. I would teach them how to, homeschool, what they needed to do. That box would go off with them. They'd bring it back. The next person would get it. And so this is the feel of homeschooling. We don't really see that so much. The homeschool co-ops were more of a activity, Parkdale day, field trip. Let's have a spelling bee. We'll have a science fair. There was no classes. It wasn't until I would say when our daughter was probably late middle school. So she graduated high school in 2013. So late middle school, that co-ops started to change and offer classes so that you could do in a classroom setting. And that's when we met you at that
Right.
time. So when did you start?
We started doing classes in 2010. And
Okay, so
yeah,
that's when it was, right.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's when things started changing a little bit from totally at home to maybe doing a co-op class. Now there was Florida Virtual School, which was the online public school. So there was that help. But when my older two were coming up, where were we going to teach chemistry and physics? That was really the tough challenge. So see how it's totally changed. And now what we can offer as a homeschool student, particularly as they're in middle school and on into high school, it's so much broader than what you could even get in a public school or a private school. So you have even more choices to choose from.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. I mean, look at what my kids and the opportunities they have as homeschooled compared to kids that are in public school, and it's just night and day. So, when you look, and there's still, so many people that are still they're considering homeschooling, or they might be still new at it, or they've been around for a while, but they're still kind of looking. So, when they're looking for and parents that have been doing this for a while, and sometimes I think sometimes people forget their why, like, why are you doing this, right? But for our new moms and new dads, new families to homeschooling, what would you say to parents, or some of the, really like the priorities in the world of homeschool education for parents?
Well, I would say that your homeschool, don't make it like the public school or the private school that you're used to, and bring that model to the house. That it's not going to really go that well. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have structured and maybe a nice schedule, because I really believe in that. I think kids really learn better when they're in a structured format, but don't expect it to be 6 hours, particularly for your little one. You may just do your kindergarten, first grade, and the early primaries in the morning, and then have a wonderful time in the afternoon in enrichment, reading, art, sports, cooking, whatever
Mm.
that. So don't make that public private school model necessarily have to come home to your home. And with all the homeschoolers that you've talked to, everyone's is different. There's probably not the same one in everybody's household, because of that's the different personality of a family. But I think the key to is create and nourish a lifestyle of learning. And that's what makes learning fun. And then, as you know, you have 2 children, I have 4 children. Each of their learning style is different. They
Right.
learn differently. And so the beauty of home education is you can develop and tailor their curriculum, their learning, to who they are, and just develop their skills. So back to your original question, how would you tell a parent to encourage them? Well, first of all, there's no perfect learning situation. Homeschool is not perfect, public school's not perfect, private school's not perfect. So you're going to have good days and bad days. So just take a breath. It's going to work like that. And then from there, concentrate on the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic when they're little. You want to make sure that they can learn to read and that they can understand. So that reading comprehension, that they can learn and write, and then eventually write well and communicate in a written format. And then, of course, in your expertise, math. They've got to, learn. And I say 3rd grade, boy, you have to learn those multiplication tables. And that's not easy for some kids. And I get that. But sometimes they don't want to do it. So they put it off. And I say, listen, that's Mrs. Smith's deal. Learn your multiplication tables, because those things never go away, do they?
That's right. They're going to be
And you
there.
start stumbling when you're in 7th and 8th grade, because you're counting on your fingers. It's like,
Right.
the 5 times tables or whatever. So, these are the encouraging things, and just take little baby steps. And then as you look back through the course of the year, and you keep what you have learned to collectively together as a family, you'll say, wow, we've really covered some things and learned a lot. So I have one story. When I started out, my oldest son was 5 and my younger son was 3. And so we had gone to a friend's house, and she was quizzing me. I know she was checking. She said to my oldest, "And Matthew, what did you learn today?" And the 3-year-old piped up and he said, "Oh, we learned all about reflected light." And we're like, "Oh, you were paying attention. I wasn't teaching you," but he was catching everything. So moms, dads, the younger ones catch things that you do together as a family. That
Wow.
was a fun story.
I love
Reflected
that.
light. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because you do a lot of portfolio reviews for families and for kids, and one of the things that I've seen whenever we come back and we look at families and we see where they are and they present their portfolio and they're looking at it, the students always come back, and one of the comments they make is that they didn't realize how much they learned during the year.
Yes.
And I
Yes,
think that's really big because it's like, I don't think we tend to notice, like, well, what is it that we really got done during the year? And then they look back and reflect on it. It's actually big.
it's
So,
huge.
yeah, when families are looking at, because obviously you come into homeschooling and you're looking at, well, what's my plan and where's my goals and what do I see for myself? So when you're looking at and working with families, how do you work with them on setting goals just in the short term, those mid-range, those long-term goals? What's some of your advice that you can share with families on, getting their goals in line that actually are going to reach that end result for young people, is to get them to be ready to go into the world, whether it's college or vocational training, military or travel, or they're going to start a business or wherever they're going to be. How do you support families in getting in the world of goal setting?
That's a really good question. And you have to look at the individual student and see where they are. And that's usually guided during this evaluation process, or maybe even before. They've just started, maybe they've left homes, public school or private school, and they feel like their student is falling behind. So we'll sit down and we'll go through, well, where are they? Are they in the primary grades? Are they in the middle school grades? How is their writing ability? So let's work on, like, maybe a middle school student working on writing a 3-point 5-paragraph paper. Well, that seems overwhelming at first, but then let's talk about what an introductory paragraph would look like and how to structure it. And then I guide them to some curriculum choices that they could use. That's just an example. Or
Right.
maybe they're really struggling in math and they say, I hate math. And I'll say, do you know your times tables? And they looked down, no, ma'am. I said, okay, well, let's make that, and that's a short-term goal that eventually would be the big long-term goal for that school year. And I get kids in 7th grade that don't know their times tables, and it's just because they didn't like it. They didn't want to do the hard work. And so that's just an encouraging process. As far as like science and social studies, that really is something that you are learning but not concentrating on. So as you are going through school, in the primary grades, your kids are exposed to everything. The math facts, your reading facts, your sounds, geography, science. And then as they progress through school, middle school, they're going to have the same type of information, the same geography, but just more. Maybe they're going to have to learn all and memorize the countries in Central America, besides just knowing where their continents and their oceans are. So they're building on their skills in elementary school, they're building on them in middle school, and then the same information is presented again, but in a more in-depth way in high school. So you're laying these foundations as the years go on. So as you say, looking back over the course of a year or maybe 2 years, you're like, well, we really did learn a lot here in this school. But again, you have to be diligent, you have to be consistent. You don't have to be like pressure, 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 because my goal is to try to throw as much pressure over the side of the boat as possible in your homeschool. No one really thrives like that, but to be on a nice, easy schedule for your family and then just make those progressions. So when I meet with kids, I usually say, what's your favorite class? And there's always a favorite class. So that's where we start. We talk about their favorite class and what did you learn and share with me. And maybe mom or a student may say, well, do you have some additional resources? And that's where I can then guide and point them to that. And so that's how we progress through their different subject matters and tweak and try to provide additional resources as they go along. And, I've got some kids that are really interested in animals. And so where we live is right along the Gulf Coast of Mexico and the beaches. And so marine biology and aquariums, and we have all kinds of animal resources. And so we've got the Audubon Society and doing birding. And so you can utilize what's in your community and incorporate that and what they've learned, then take what they've learned and write about it and so forth. And sometimes the little ones, they can't write about it. I said, okay, mom, why don't you be the secretary and let them tell you about it? and then you write down their sentences and then they copy the sentences. So there's all these fun ways of working together
Mm,
like that. I hope I've
that's
answered
awesome.
that question.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, it's
Kind of
great
got
because
off on a little.
because I think, oftentimes people are like, well, where it's taking it, how do you eat the dinosaur? Bite at a time, right? It's taking those little chunks and
Exactly.
how you go from the
Exactly.
next step to the next step to the next step. Now you have a website so people can reach you, and if they want to contact you and work on either their portfolio review, their end of the year evaluation, because you're able to do that as well. So how do people contact you?
Well, they can contact me through homeschoolguidancefl.com. That's the website, or they can email me at Lorraine kpsmith@gmail.com.
Perfect,
So,
perfect. We'll put that in
uh,
the show notes too, so people have that. They can just click
thanks.
right to it as well.
So
Yeah.
I'll tell you though, Dennis, the bulk of my work, I think, is really with high schoolers because once kids get to that level, as we discussed previously, there are many, many options for high school kids to utilize in order to complete their high school curriculum. And I can't speak for every state, but in Florida, if a student is enrolled with their school board, now the parents become the legal school and they can dictate what they want in their high school because they're the ones that are graduating their high school student. I like to counsel what is required for high school graduation according to the Florida Department of Education standards. And actually, it's really the same standards throughout the country because it's in terms of NCAA and all of that, which is another layer that you'd have to look at for those
That's right.
athletes. But,
Sure.
there's the 4 English classes, and they have to be substantial, major concentrations in composition, reading for information and literature. Now, that's the standard. You have as a parent, have the flexibility to develop that and change it how you want it, but that's what I tell them about. And then the 4 math classes, which your Mr. D Math fills the integral role, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, plus one other, which could be on to trigonometry, calculus, or do you have business math and so forth?
Consumer math, right? We do.
Right, right. And then the sciences, you have to have 3 good solid science classes and 2 have to have labs. And so those sciences, biology, chemistry, physics, marine biology, anatomy, physiology, physical science, these are all good solid high school levels. Now that's to say, the kids are learning science concepts as they're coming up in grade school and middle school to prepare them to do this. Social studies, world history, US history, American government, economics. Now, I personally love that Dave Ramsey personal finance class for homeschool students. I think everybody in America should take that class, by the way. But
Right.
anyway, that's just my personal bias here. But these are all good solid classes. There's a fine arts class or an industrial arts class. Fine arts is music and art and um, uh, singing, choir, or computers, or that sort of thing. Industrial arts. And then there's a PE class. Foreign language, I think, is very important, but you don't need that in Florida for high school graduation. But colleges like that and scholarships, particularly the one we have in Florida, need 2 years of a foreign language. And then beyond that, you have elective credits. And so with that structure is how you navigate through your high school years. And you can do that all at home. You can utilize co-ops, online classes such as Mr. D Math or Florida Virtual School. And then we get into the world of dual enrollment, which is a pretty cool thing for homeschool students. So I have many homeschool students that are graduating high school with their first 2 years of college completed. And that there's good and bad in that too, but that's not for every student, but it's for many. Or if they know they're not going to go to the traditional college route, they may be going to a technical college, they could actually take dual enrollment classes at their technical college and have certifications in a particular area by the time they graduate high school and then go right into the workforce. And Dennis, I have to tell you, I'm seeing more and more students choose that route right now. Are you seeing that too?
Yep, absolutely. You know,
Mhm.
there was a statistic I just read too that businesses, over 50% of the businesses out there are actually dropping one of the requirements, which is in having a college degree, because they're looking for kids now that have experience. They've got some kind of background where they did an apprenticeship or they were doing some part-time work. But you know, it's like it really is moving towards that more skill set of
Right.
what they're looking for. So yeah, so it is. We're seeing that as well, where kids are like, you know, they're interested in getting their career started, or they're interested in, like you said, like they're actually working on a trade that they can actually get the certifications done. So by the time high school's over, they can start getting the
They
workforce.
can
So
jump
we're
right
seeing
into it.
more of that. Yeah.
And I see these education or training apprenticeships after high school changing a bit. A mom told me about this one. It's called discoverpraxis.com. Maybe you've heard about it. It's a
Haven't.
it's a 6 month, and your listeners can go to their website, discoverpraxis.com, and each month they train the student in a particular skill set.
Wow.
And then after 6 months, they place them in an internship, and it's a paid internship. Now, that was
Maybe.
not even
Yeah.
out there when I
Right.
was even thinking about college. That would have
Right.
been really cool. But
Absolutely.
these are just different opportunities. That's one. There's probably many out there like that. So, um, another service that I prepared, and I was very fortunate to be able to do your children's transcripts, were the official high school transcripts, so that we
Right.
inform their coursework with what they've done for high school, and even they can start building that high school transcript before they reach ninth grade, and that's reflected on the transcript. And then when they graduate high school, not only do you have a official transcript, but the certification block that the parent signs will also act as their high school diploma, because the parent would be issuing the diploma for high school. So
Right.
they have that, and it goes to the military, goes to colleges, and it serves as their official document. So
That's awesome.
yeah, so that's
Yeah,
a
that's
service that I
great. I know when people get to the end, you know, they're getting ready to graduate, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh my gosh, I got to get everything together."
yeah,
And it's really, you know, it's kind of funny because it's like when you say like you know, most of the clients you work with, most of the families you work with, they're the high school age, but that's when people start to kind of, I don't want to use the word panic, but panic's probably a good word, because they're like, "Oh my gosh, my transcripts need to be done, and you make sure I have everything together. That what do I need to do so that I can let the school board know that I'm done and I'm complete, and where do we, you know, how do we get them so that they are officially graduated?" And that's something you help
right.
people with. And I know it made a big difference for us, because it kind of like, we looked at it and was like, okay, we actually had done everything that we needed to do, but there is that calming of like, wow, not only did we thought we did, but you reassured us that we did, and that made all the difference in the world. So
Well,
it's really
thank you,
great.
Dennis. I was happy to be able to help you all like that, because I think it's fun. And
Yeah.
particularly as kids start to develop and think, well, I think I might want to be this when I grow up. And or I may ask, what do you think you want to be? And they don't know. And I said, I bet you have 5 things. And so I say, let's list those 5 things down. And what does it take to do the first thing? Is it college? Is it testing? Is it technical college? Or in the second thing? And maybe it's, 7 years of college. So they can start to actually look at it and think about it and plan that what they really want to do. And so that's just a way of processing. When you're 15, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I
Yeah.
was 15, but there are some kids that do. Maybe you knew what you wanted to be when you were
I
15.
did not. Well, no, I didn't. It took me a while. So I was
Yeah,
gonna
it's
pick
just
that
part of
later,
that.
but I did.
There's,
Yeah.
and I try to tell mom and dad there's the intellectual IQ, because they have smart kids, and then there's the emotional IQ. And so that's a huge factor when you are transitioning, particularly in high school. So, we discuss that too, and I help them just kind of calm down. We don't have to be in a hurry to do all this.
Right.
So,
That's really
and
great.
And that's the good thing. And so there's strategies as you're going through high school to help with the dual enrollment and testing. So I've created, it's called the homeschool checklist timeline. So what you need to consider before ninth grade, and then all the things you can consider while in ninth grade, and then 10th grade, when to start taking your standardized tests for college. And I have to just say, I like the spring of the 10th grade year. So as you said, sometimes parents come see me and the kids are at the end of 11th grade and they haven't started taking their SAT exams. And yeah, they may be a year behind, but it's not a problem. So
Right.
we just explain how this all works and how you continue to walk through it.
Right.
So yeah, it's as you say, how do you eat a dinosaur? One
That's right.
bite at a time,
One
just
bite
step
at a
by
time.
step.
That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Well, very good, Lorraine. This has been awesome. And again, it's homeschoolguidancefl.com, and you can reach Lorraine, and you can reach her. You can reach her email through their website, and we'll put our email address in the show notes, and you'll be able to reach her as well. And so, obviously, great to see you, and I'm super excited to always hear about how the family's doing, and knowing that everybody's doing great, and you're doing great as well as Kevin. So it's just really, really awesome to see you. And let's come back. We'll do this again, of course.
Well,
And
thank you.
we'll talk even more. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for tuning in to A Plus Parents, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Dennis. Bye.